Have you ever wondered why some men treat the woman they're cheating with better than the wife they promised forever to? It's not usually about love. It's about which version of himself he gets to be with each of them. This is Angela's story, 16 years of marriage, and the slow, quiet realization that she'd become the responsibility while someone else got to be the reward. Angela and Robert met in their early 20s, both broke, both ambitious, both convinced they'd found something rare. In the early years, Robert planned surprise dates, wrote her notes she'd find in her coat pocket, and made her feel like the center of his entire world. They married 3 years later, and for a while, that same effort continued, small, consistent, unremarkable acts that added up to something that felt like devotion. Nobody warns you that the hardest part of a marriage isn't the wedding. It's the 10,000 ordinary days that come after it. Kids arrived. Bills arrived. Robert's job demanded longer hours, and somewhere in the noise of daily survival, the notes in the coat pocket quietly stopped. Angela didn't complain much. She told herself this was simply what real, mature love looked like: less romance, more partnership. Robert, meanwhile, started to see home less as a place of connection and more as a place of obligation: dishes, bills, silence at dinner. Neither of them said it out loud, but somewhere in those years, they stopped being each other's favorite person to talk to. Robert met Jasmine at a work conference in a hotel bar during a week where home felt very far away. Jasmine asked him questions no one had asked him in years, not about the kids, schedules, or the broken dishwasher, but about him. She had no idea he snored, no idea he left his socks on the floor, no idea what he actually looked like at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday. With Jasmine, Robert only ever had to show up as the highlight reel version of himself, because that was the only version she ever saw. What started as texting became weekly calls. What started as calls became business trips that didn't quite match his actual schedule. Robert started buying Jasmine small gifts, the same kind of thoughtful little gestures Angela hadn't received from him in years. He remembered Jasmine's coffee order, her sister's name, the anniversary of her father's passing details. He could no longer recall about his own wife's daily life. If this pattern feels familiar, pause for a second. Is the better version of someone you know actually who they are, or just who they get to be with less at stake? With Jasmine, every interaction was still new, still effortful, still performed with the awareness that she could simply walk away if he stopped trying. With Angela, there was no such risk. 16 years, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a shared last name told Robert, on some unconscious level, that she wasn't going anywhere. That false sense of security is precisely what let him stop showing up for her the way he still showed up for a woman he'd known for less than a year. Angela had become the guaranteed relationship. Jasmine was still the one he had to earn. And effort, it turns out, tends to flow toward whatever still feels uncertain. Angela found out the way most people do, a notification on a shared family tablet that Robert had forgotten was still logged into his messages. She read 8 months of messages in a single sitting, watching in real time as the man who'd stopped noticing her noticed someone else's every detail. The most painful part wasn't the secrecy. It was seeing, in his own words, how much warmer and more attentive he was capable of being just never with her. 16 years of marriage, and she was finally seeing proof that the effort she'd missed hadn't disappeared. It had simply moved. Angela didn't scream when Robert got home. She simply turned the tablet screen toward him and waited. Robert's first instinct was to minimize it, calling it just texting, a phrase that told Angela everything about how far he'd normalized his own behavior. When Angela pushed further, Robert finally admitted something he hadn't fully admitted to himself. Being with Jasmine simply felt easier than being seen, fully and unglamorously, by his own wife. Angela asked him quietly if he understood what he was actually saying that he hadn't. Fallen out of love with her, he'd simply stopped choosing the version of love that required effort. Angela asked Robert to leave that same week, not out of impulsiveness, but because she finally understood that staying wouldn't change which relationship he'd trained himself to prioritize. Robert and Jasmine's relationship, once it moved out of secrecy and into daily reality, slowly began to change shape. Within 2 years, friends of the couple noted that Robert had started leaving his socks on Jasmine's floor too, and that the thoughtful gestures had quietly begun to fade, the same way they once had at home. The fantasy hadn't been about Jasmine specifically. It had been about the absence of daily reality, and reality eventually finds every relationship. What happened between Robert, Angela, and Jasmine follows a well-documented psychological pattern, the difference between limerence and attachment. Limerence is the intense, idealized infatuation of new connection, fueled by novelty, uncertainty, and the absence of ordinary friction. Attachment, the bond that sustains long marriages, is built through repeated exposure to someone's full, unfiltered self, including the parts that are boring, tired, or inconvenient. Affairs frequently feel more alive, not because the new partner is inherently more lovable, but because secrecy and scarcity artificially inflate emotional intensity. Psychologists refer to this as the secrecy amplification effect. The more hidden a relationship is, the more heightened and significant it tends to feel to the people inside it. This is also why so many affairs lose their intensity once they become the primary relationship, the very scarcity and secrecy that fueled the feeling disappears the moment it becomes ordinary. For the betrayed spouse, the deepest wound often isn't jealousy, it's the realization that the capacity for effort was never gone. It was simply being withheld. The version of someone you see in a new, secret, or high-stakes relationship isn't automatically more real than the version you see every day. It's simply less tested. Long-term relationships don't fade. Because love runs out, they fade. Because effort quietly gets deprioritized once security feels guaranteed. If you notice yourself becoming your best self only with someone new, that's worth examining honestly, rather than assuming it's simply who they bring out in you. Feeling secure in a relationship should be a foundation for effort, not a replacement for it. If a relationship feels effortless purely because it's new or secret, ask what happens to that same feeling once ordinary life is finally allowed in. Angela eventually rebuilt a life that didn't require anyone else's attention to feel whole, choosing to invest that same daily effort back into herself. She says the lesson she wishes she'd learned decades earlier isn't about Robert at all. It's that effort, attention, and small daily gestures were never optional extras in love. They were the entire foundation. So here's the real question worth sitting with in your own relationships. Where has effort quietly gone, and who or what has it been spent on instead? Comment ICIT if this story hit closer to home than you expected. And be honest with us, where has your own effort quietly been going lately?